G'day. Today, I'm feeling the need to talk about the both sides narratives flying around from those who claim to be our leaders and protectors when it comes to the far right in this place we often call Australia. It has a couple of examples of what I'm talking about from the last couple of weeks. First off, we've got a Labor motion to condemn the rise of far-right extremism, which passed the Senate, but only after the LNP insisted on removing references to their senators Craig Kelly and George Christensen, who have been making noise about US election conspiracy theories and other far-right talking points, along with the addition of condemnations of so-called far-left extremism. And second off, we've got VicPol, which in its submission to the federal government inquiry into extremism made reference to so-called far left-wing extremists, a pack of scamps who are, quote, mimicking overseas-based movements such as the dreaded Antifa to justify the use of violence to promote civil unrest and target perceived enemy groups. Lots to unpack there, as the kids are saying, but let's keep it focused and see how this comparison bears out by having a look at what the far right and the ostensible far left have been up to lately, starting with, of course, the far right. Come on down. On this team, we got Tom Sewell and his gronks doing a not very good job of hiding their identities as they hike through the Grampians, harassing hikers and locals, throwing Sieg Heils as they go. Very cool. Oh, and I've just seen he's attacked a Channel 9 security guard an hour before their story about him goes to air. Wishing the security guard he put in the fucking hospital a quick recovery. Also, we've got the Borderlands Proud Boys going to people's places of work and the homes of pensioners to threaten them over some very benign Facebook comments. And how could we not mention the bloke who painted a swastika on his head and tried to flamethrower an Indigenous mother and daughter in Perth? Okay then, pretty strong team there. Pretty down for violence, obviously. Let's check out the left then. Over here we've got a few podcasts and articles telling people that this right-wing stuff is wrong and that the people doing it suck. Damn, it's a bit of a first-round blowout right there. Alright, let's broaden the scope a little and let's talk about the real heavy hitters, yeah? The far right has got the Christchurch shooter responsible for the deliberate murder of 51 Muslims. Shit. On the left, we got, groups of people who yell at racists for being racists. Yeah, look, the equivocation is obviously horseshit. These examples and the ASIO data on the situation prove that very clearly. Anyone then who is at all informed and is taking this both sides position should be considered highly suspicious. It's also something we've seen before, not exactly a brand spanking new trick for the LNP and co. Remember when Dutton tried to convince people that Islamic terrorism is left-wing terrorism, and also dropped the quote, you can use left-wing to describe everybody from the left to the right. Still, the narratives get through, and a lot of people believe it to some extent. Even if someone is the type to see shit that the right is doing and recognise it as abhorrent, they may be forgiven for buying into both sides' arguments when the LNP pushes it as hard as they do, and their allies in right-wing media, of course, do the same. So the question is then, what's the big fucking deal? Why should people care? Well, in my opinion, the worry here is that it takes the focus off the very real threat. Seriously, I would not give a fuck otherwise. But if focus is diverted away from these truly dangerous gronks, it means, well, a few things really. One, people aren't as aware of where the threat is actually coming from, making it easier to minimise things, and the public is less adept to see to their own safety. Second, with a public that's not as focused on the real threat, well, it gets easier for governments to ignore the problem, and mugs like Dutton to be made to look like he's onto the issue on a current affair, but it also allows the government to slide further right themselves. Just in case I need to say it, that probably shouldn't be viewed as much of a stretch either. Remember from the start of the vid that the LNP is super keen to protect its members who are themselves very far right as it stands. There's more shared ideological positions too, of course. I'll leave them alone for now. So, that's one explanation of the problem. The next issue is then, what do we do? Well, we as lefties need to insist that the narrative be told truthfully, but we also really need to tell the narrative ourselves outside of the content creation space. You know, speak to your community, and not just those you know will be receptive, and not just online. You know, speak to the normies and the boomers in the meat space. Do it the right way, of course. I've found that giving someone the space to process new info can be helpful, but yeah, get it done. It's a lot harder to ignore the people you know. And yes, we're up against some pretty powerful entities there, but hey, hope springs eternal. Also, of course, and if it helps you, there's loads of media you can point people to. For example, I've deliberately kept this vid short and left out the more forceful arguments and language for just this purpose. And of course, there's a great many examples of actually good content you could use as well. But yeah, let's wrap it up there. Get out and do good things, people. Laters.